The evening was electric, a convergence of ambition and innovation that buzzed beneath the gleaming, futuristic arches of the venue. Located in a city synonymous with progress, the event's location was as much a statement as the carefully curated guest list. This was not an ordinary conference or gala, it was an invitation-only summit for the vanguard of technology and entrepreneurship. Rumor had it that the event's theme was the future beyond tomorrow, and everyone present had, in some way, already helped shape the future we live in today. The building itself was a marvel of modern architecture, a seamless blend of cutting-edge technology and artistry. The walls shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the dim glow of ambient lights that shifted subtly between cool blues and soft whites. Tall, transparent panels revealed glimpses of the skyline, a breathtaking view of a world built on the very ideas discussed within these walls. Outside, autonomous cars glided silently across the street, their sleek forms mirroring the sophistication of the event. Inside, every detail, from the robotic bartenders to the holographic displays showcasing the latest innovations, whispered one message here: we create what others only dream of. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that arises when great minds collide. A symphony of muted conversations filled the space, punctuated occasionally by laughter or the clink of glasses. Innovators, venture capitalists, and tech luminaries mingled in clusters, their faces lit with excitement and purpose. Some talked shop, swapping ideas that could spark revolutions in their fields, while others tested the waters of new collaborations, their sentences laced with possibility. As guests moved about the room, it became clear that this wasn't a place for showboating or surface-level networking. This was where serious deals were made, where fortunes and futures were born over casual conversations. There was a palpable sense of exclusivity, not in a pretentious way, but in the knowledge that everyone here had earned their place. The people attending were those who had dared to imagine beyond the constraints of the possible, and had turned those imaginings into reality. At the center of it all stood a man who needed no introduction: Elon Musk. Towering yet unassuming, his presence was magnetic. Dressed in his usual understated style, he seemed both part of the crowd and somehow apart from it. It wasn't just his achievements that drew people to him, it was the air of relentless curiosity and drive that surrounded him like an aura. Even in casual conversation, Elon's eyes flickered with a restless energy, as though his mind were always racing, piecing together some grand puzzle the rest of the world hadn't yet noticed. Across the room, a holographic presentation flickered to life, showcasing the latest advancements in artificial intelligence and sustainable energy. Guests turned their heads momentarily, marveling at the audacity of the projects on display, but the real draw of the evening wasn't the technology. It was the people. Visionaries exchanged ideas with policymakers, and innovators pitched to investors in quiet corners. The event felt less like a gathering and more like the nerve center of the world's progress. Every connection here held the potential to ripple outward, shaping industries and lives. But beneath the dazzling surface of the event, there was an undercurrent of mystery. The guest list had been kept secret, and even among those present, speculation abounded about who might show up next. The room was filled with whispers about billionaires who preferred to stay out of the spotlight, startups rumored to be on the verge of breakthroughs, and celebrities venturing into tech investments. Each new arrival drew a wave of subtle glances as attendees tried to gauge whether the newcomer was a peer, a rival, or perhaps the key to their next big opportunity. Despite the gravitas of the event, the atmosphere wasn't stiff. There was an ease to the interactions, as though everyone recognized that they were among equals. This wasn't about competition, it was about collaboration, about finding the sparks that would ignite the next wave of innovation. Yet, for all the camaraderie, there was an unspoken rule that permeated the air: you had to bring something to the table. Here, brilliance wasn't optional, it was the currency of the evening. As the night wore on, the sense of anticipation only grew. It was a feeling that something extraordinary could happen at any moment, that a single conversation might lead to an idea that could change the world. The event wasn't just a celebration of what had been achieved, it was a testament to what was yet to come, and in the midst of it all, the world's greatest innovator stood poised, unaware that tonight the cameras were watching, and something more than deals and dreams was about to unfold. Amid the hum of innovation and quiet power deals, the event's atmosphere shifted subtly but unmistakably when a new figure stepped through the grand entrance. She wasn't what anyone expected, and that was exactly what made her entrance so compelling. The young woman appeared almost tentative, her movements carrying the slightest hesitation. Her dress was simple, short, clean-lined, and understated. Unlike the meticulously tailored suits and high-tech accessories adorning the other attendees, her look suggested she had chosen it herself, not with the help of a stylist. She carried a small clutch bag, its edges slightly worn, a testament to practicality over pretense. In a room full of meticulously polished personas, she stood out not because she was trying to, but because she wasn't. For a moment, her presence went unnoticed, as the guests were too engrossed in their own conversations to pay attention. But the quiet way she scanned the room, as if searching for something or someone, began to draw eyes. One by one, heads turned, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Who was she? A newcomer sneaking past the velvet rope. A wildcard guest invited at the last minute. In a space where status and credentials were the unspoken entry fee, she was a puzzle that people were suddenly eager to solve. Her posture betrayed a mix of determination and nervous energy. She stood straight, chin slightly raised, as if bracing herself against the weight of judgment, but her hands betrayed her, fidgeting with the edge of her clutch. Her gaze moved quickly from group to group, as though calculating which cluster might offer her the least resistance. Yet, every now and then, her focus would falter, and she'd glance down, her confidence flickering. It was Elon Musk who noticed her first. Perhaps it was her apparent discomfort that caught his eye, a quiet contrast to the confident, polished personalities that filled the room. Or maybe it was the unguarded sincerity in her expression, a quality that felt increasingly rare in spaces like this. Whatever it was, he paused mid-sentence, his attention shifting toward her. His companions followed his gaze, their conversation faltering as they too took notice of the unexpected guest. The young woman met his eyes, and for a fleeting second she froze. The weight of recognition dawned on her. Here he was, the man who embodied the kind of innovation and success she dreamed of. Her instinct was to turn away, to retreat before she made a fool of herself. But before she could, Elon did something she didn't expect. He smiled. It wasn't a perfunctory smile or one meant to deflect attention. It was warm and genuine, a small gesture that seemed to say, "It's okay. You belong here too." He raised his hand in a subtle wave, a silent invitation for her to approach. The room seemed to hold its breath as she hesitated, weighing whether she had the courage to cross the floor and step into his orbit. Finally, she took a step forward, and then another, her movements measured and deliberate. The distance between them felt immense, but with every step, her confidence grew. By the time she reached him, she had managed to steady her breathing, though her hands still clutched the bag a little too tightly. "Hello," Elon greeted her, his tone warm and disarming. His words were simple, but they carried an unexpected kindness that eased the tension in her shoulders. She smiled back, grateful but still unsure how to begin. "Hi," she replied softly, her voice almost drowned out by the hum of the room. For a moment, the rest of the event faded into the background, and all she could focus on was the man standing before her, the man who, until this moment, had seemed unreachable. She began, pausing to collect her thoughts. "I'm sorry if I'm interrupting. I came here hoping to meet people who could help me with an idea I've been working on." Elon's expression shifted from polite interest to genuine curiosity. "An idea," he repeated, encouraging her to go on. She nodded, her nervousness now tempered by a spark of determination. "It's a project I've been working on for a while. Something I believe could make a real difference. I just don't have the resources or the connections to move forward." The words tumbled out faster than she intended, but she didn't care. She had his attention now, and she wasn't going to waste it. Around them, the room buzzed with quiet speculation, guests casting sidelong glances at the unfolding interaction. But in that moment, it didn't matter. For the first time all evening, she felt seen. And in Elon Musk's patient, attentive gaze, she saw the faintest glimmer of belief that maybe, just maybe, her idea wasn't as far-fetched as she had feared. As the murmurs of the crowd grew louder, Elon Musk noticed the mounting attention their exchange was drawing. Curious eyes from every corner of the room were locked on them, whispers spreading like wildfire. It was clear that their interaction had become the event's unintended centerpiece. Sensing her discomfort, Elon tilted his head slightly toward a quieter corner of the venue. "Why don't we step over there?" he suggested, his tone gentle yet firm. The young woman hesitated, her eyes darting around the room, but the sincerity in his gaze gave her the courage to nod. He led the way, weaving effortlessly through the clusters of guests, and she followed, clutching her bag tightly as though it were a lifeline. The crowd parted for them, the buzz of speculation trailing in their wake. They reached a semi-private alcove tucked away from the main floor. A sleek glass table and two low chairs sat under a canopy of soft, ambient light. Here, the hum of the gathering was a distant murmur, replaced by a quieter, more focused atmosphere. Elon gestured for her to sit, and she sank into the chair, exhaling a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "All right," he said, sitting across from her. "Let's hear it. What's your idea?" His words were calm, his demeanor unassuming, but his eyes were sharp, radiating an intensity that made it clear he wasn't here to humor her. This was her moment, her chance to prove she belonged. The woman sat up straighter, her hands resting on the table to steady herself. "It's an educational platform," she began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "It's affordable, scalable, and designed for underserved communities. I've been developing it to bridge the gap between traditional education and modern technology, but I've hit a wall." Elon leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "What kind of wall?" "Funding," she admitted, her voice dropping slightly. "And connections. I've done as much as I can on my own prototypes, research, testing, but without the right backing. It's just an idea. I don't have the network or the resources to scale it." Elon nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Tell me about the platform. What makes it different?" She launched into an explanation, her passion igniting as she described the platform's features: AI-driven adaptability, offline functionality for areas with limited internet, and tools designed to empower teachers as well as students. Her words came faster now, her initial hesitation replaced by enthusiasm. As she spoke, Elon began asking questions, specific, probing questions that forced her to think deeper about her concept. How does it scale across different regions? What's your strategy for keeping costs low without compromising quality? Have you considered partnerships with existing NGOs or tech companies? Each question sharpened her focus, and though they challenged her, she found herself thriving under the scrutiny. Elon wasn't just testing her, he was pushing her to refine her vision, to identify potential weaknesses and untapped opportunities. For the first time, she felt like she was talking to someone who truly understood not just her idea, but the obstacles she faced. And more importantly, he didn't dismiss her struggles as insurmountable. Instead, he treated them as puzzles to solve. Their conversation deepened, drawing her into a rhythm she hadn't expected. She explained the platform's potential impact, how it could transform access to education for millions, leveling the playing field for students in rural and underserved areas. Elon listened intently, his expression shifting from analytical to something softer, almost reminiscent. It was as though he saw a reflection of his younger self in her, someone willing to take risks for a vision others might dismiss as too ambitious. Finally, after what felt like both an eternity and a blink of an eye, Elon leaned back in his chair. He was silent for a moment, his eyes distant as he processed everything she had said. Then he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small notebook, and scribbled something down. Sliding the paper across the table, he said, "This should help you get started." She stared at the figure written there, her breath catching in her throat. It was enough to fund the next phase of her project, a sum that to him was modest, but to her was life-changing. "I can't," she began, shaking her head. "I can't accept this." "You can," Elon said firmly, a faint smile on his lips. "This isn't charity, it's an investment in someone who cares enough to solve a real problem. Don't waste it." Tears pricked the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them away, overwhelmed by gratitude. She extended her hand, her voice trembling. "Thank you. For everything." Elon shook her hand, his grip firm but warm. "Don't thank me yet," he said. "Get out there and make it work." As they stood to leave, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time in months, she believed her idea could succeed not just in theory, but in reality. And it was all because one person had chosen to listen. The night passed in a blur for the young entrepreneur. As she left the high-tech gathering, clutching the figurative and literal lifeline Elon Musk had offered her, she was filled with a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. She thought the night would be a turning point for her project, something she'd remember quietly as a moment of serendipity. What she didn't realize was that it wouldn't remain quiet for long. A week later, her phone buzzed incessantly. First, it was a text from a friend, "Have you seen this?" Then another. By the time she opened her social media apps, she was greeted by a torrent of notifications. Her heart sank as she saw the headline, "Elon Musk's secret meeting caught on camera." The accompanying video, clipped from the venue's security footage, showed her and Elon walking together toward a private room. Though the footage was grainy and soundless, it was clear who they were. Elon's familiar stride and her more tentative movements were unmistakable. The context of their meeting, her impassioned pitch for her project, was completely absent, leaving the video open to interpretation. And interpret people did. Within hours, theories flooded the internet. Social media exploded with speculation, ranging from the plausible to the absurd. Some claimed Elon was mentoring a promising young entrepreneur, others suggested a clandestine business deal. But the more salacious theories overshadowed the truth. Rumors of a personal relationship dominated the discussion, with memes and gossip columns adding fuel to the fire. News outlets picked up the story, plastering headlines like "Elon Musk's mysterious meeting, who is she?" across their websites. Talk shows debated the footage, dissecting her appearance and body language as though they held clues to a grand conspiracy. The young woman, who had been a nobody in the eyes of the world just days before, was now at the center of an unwelcome media frenzy. At first, she stayed silent, hoping the story would burn out on its own. But as the days passed, the attention only grew. Anonymous users dug through her social media profiles, trying to piece together her identity and motives, as a few online communities even questioned whether she was a plant or a corporate spy. The situation was spiraling out of control, and she realized that her silence was only adding to the chaos. One evening, after hours of pacing in her tiny apartment, she made a decision. She opened her laptop, logged into her social media account, and began typing a post that would change everything. Setting the record straight, the post began. She recounted the night in straightforward, heartfelt terms. She described the overwhelming nerves she'd felt walking into the event and her decision to approach Elon Musk, despite her doubts. She explained how she had shared her project with him, a platform designed to provide accessible education for underserved communities, and how he had responded with genuine interest and invaluable advice. "He didn't have to listen to me," she wrote. "He could have brushed me off like so many others in that room. But instead, he gave me his time, his wisdom, and even his financial support. I owe him more than I can say, not for who he is, but for the kindness and encouragement he showed me that night." Her post was raw, unpolished, and deeply personal. It wasn't a defense of Elon Musk, but a tribute to the generosity of someone who had chosen to believe in her. She ended the post with a plea: "Let's focus on the real story, the power of mentorship, and the importance of helping others chase their dreams." The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, her post went viral, reshaping the narrative almost overnight. People who had been quick to jump to conclusions now rallied behind her, applauding her courage and the clarity she brought to the situation. The story shifted from one of intrigue and scandal to a celebration of unexpected mentorship. Elon himself responded with characteristic wit, tweeting, "Didn't know I'd star in a soap opera this week. But yes, mentorship matters. Let's do more of it." His light-hearted tone diffused any lingering tension, redirecting the spotlight to the young woman and her vision. Soon, the media coverage took a new tone. Articles highlighted the transformative power of mentorship, using her story as a beacon for aspiring entrepreneurs. Online forums turned from gossip to support, with users sharing resources and advice to help her succeed. The scandal had faded, replaced by something far more meaningful: a story of hope, ambition, and the ripple effect of a single act of kindness. For the young entrepreneur, the public revelation had been an ordeal, but it had also amplified her voice in ways she couldn't have imagined. Her idea was no longer just hers, it was a shared vision, one that countless people now believed in. And it all started with a private conversation that, ironically, became public. The young woman's heartfelt post didn't just clear the air, it ignited something far bigger than she could have anticipated. What began as a single story of unexpected mentorship between her and Elon Musk quickly snowballed into a movement that rippled across industries. As her story gained traction, a wave of entrepreneurs, leaders, and innovators came forward with their own experiences of being mentored or mentoring others. The tech world, so often criticized for its cutthroat competitiveness, began showing a softer, more collaborative side. Social media buzzed with hashtags like mentorship matters and lift the next generation. The young woman's project, once a solitary dream, now had the backing of a growing community. Investors who had ignored her before now reached out, not just with funding, but with offers to connect her to the right people. Developers volunteered their skills, educators provided insights, and even policymakers expressed interest in her vision for accessible education. It wasn't just her project that benefited. Her story inspired a broader conversation about the responsibility of successful individuals to help those just starting out. On tech blogs and news platforms, thought pieces emerged about the importance of mentorship in innovation. Entrepreneurs began sharing advice on how to create sustainable, supportive ecosystems within their industries. Elon Musk's tweet, while brief and characteristically humorous, added fuel to the fire. In subsequent interviews, he downplayed his role in her journey, but emphasized the larger point: the next great idea isn't always going to come from someone with $1 million office and an endless Rolex. Sometimes, it's the person with a big dream and limited resources who needs a little help to make it happen. This sentiment resonated deeply, particularly among mid-level professionals who had once been overlooked themselves. A few of Elon's peers, other high-profile entrepreneurs, began sharing their own mentorship stories. Some admitted they had never considered the ripple effect of their influence until now. Others announced new initiatives, setting up mentorship programs, offering grants, or hosting workshops for aspiring innovators. At tech conferences and business forums, panels dedicated to mentorship became a staple. Established entrepreneurs, CEOs, and even venture capitalists spoke candidly about the importance of guiding the next generation. They shared their own experiences of mentorship, both giving and receiving, and challenged their peers to adopt a similar mindset. The young woman herself became a reluctant but effective ambassador for the movement. Though she hadn't sought the spotlight, she used it wisely. In interviews and speeches, she spoke about the courage it took to approach Elon that night and the transformative power of his response. But she also stressed the importance of humility and generosity in leadership, reminding others that small gestures of support could change someone's life. Her project, now gaining momentum, became a case study in the impact of mentorship. It launched in a handful of underserved communities within its first year, offering students access to cutting-edge educational tools that would otherwise have been out of reach. The success of the platform only reinforced the narrative mentorship wasn't just an act of kindness, it was an investment in the future. As the years went on, the ripple effect continued to grow. Companies began embedding mentorship into their corporate cultures, encouraging senior employees to take younger colleagues under their wing. Universities expanded their programs to include mentorship networks for students entering competitive industries. Nonprofits dedicated to mentorship saw surges in funding and volunteers, many inspired by her story. The young woman often reflected on the night that started it all. She realized that what made the story powerful wasn't Elon Musk's fame or wealth, it was his willingness to listen and believe in someone with far less power than him. It was proof that a single moment of support, when given sincerely, could spark a movement capable of changing the world. Years had passed since that unforgettable night at the high-tech gathering, and the young woman's life had transformed beyond anything she could have imagined. What had started as a leap of faith, a nervous approach to one of the world's most influential figures, had evolved into a thriving reality. Her platform, initially a fragile dream, was now a beacon of hope for countless underserved communities. Yet the ripples of that moment extended far beyond her own success. Her educational platform had grown into a global initiative. With its AI-driven adaptability and offline functionality, it became a cornerstone for schools in remote areas, reaching students who had once been left behind by traditional education systems. Governments and NGOs adopted the platform, citing its affordability and effectiveness as revolutionary. It wasn't just a tool anymore, it was a movement in its own right, empowering teachers and students to redefine what was possible. Despite her success, the young woman remained grounded. She made it a point to credit the people who had believed in her along the way, and one name always stood out: Elon Musk. While their interaction had been brief in the grand scheme of things, it had left a profound impact on her. In interviews and speeches, she spoke candidly about how his encouragement had planted the seed of confidence she needed to persevere. But Elon's influence didn't stop there. Inspired by the unintended spotlight their meeting had created, he quietly continued mentoring others, particularly those who didn't fit the mold of traditional success. He would occasionally fund small projects, offer advice over email, or connect ambitious newcomers with people in his network. It wasn't about making headlines, it was about creating meaningful change, one person at a time. Meanwhile, the young woman had embraced her role as a mentor. Remembering the overwhelming isolation she had felt before that night, she vowed to never let others feel the same. She started hosting workshops and creating networks for young entrepreneurs, especially those from marginalized backgrounds. Her programs became a hub for collaboration, uniting people with bold ideas and limited resources with those who could help them realize their visions. Her emphasis on collaboration over competition became a defining aspect of her legacy. She believed deeply that innovation wasn't a solo endeavor, it thrived when ideas collided, evolved, and grew together. This philosophy spread through the network she built, inspiring a new generation of innovators to see each other not as rivals but as allies. Elon, watching her success from afar, felt a quiet sense of pride. He rarely reflected on specific moments in his career. His mind was too focused on the future, but something about that night stuck with him. Perhaps it was the purity of her determination or the way her vision aligned with his own belief in creating solutions that mattered. Whatever it was, he saw in her the proof that mentorship, no matter how brief, could have a lasting impact. Their paths didn't cross often, but when they did, the unspoken bond between them was evident. It was never about gratitude or obligation, it was a shared understanding of what it meant to turn potential into reality. On one such rare occasion, at a global conference on sustainable innovation, they exchanged a brief conversation. "Your platform," Elon said, nodding, "it's changing lives. I'm glad you didn't give up." She smiled, the weight of her journey evident in her expression. "Only because you didn't let me." As the conference continued, she found herself reflecting on how far she had come, not just because of Elon's initial support, but because of the ecosystem of mentorship and collaboration that had grown around her. She realized that legacies aren't built by individuals, they're built by communities willing to lift each other up. And so, the ripple continued, spreading outward, inspiring new acts of kindness, collaboration, and innovation. The legacy left behind wasn't just one of individual success, it was a testament to what could be achieved when people chose to believe in each other, share their knowledge, and work together toward a brighter future.